I want to thank again the American people for the magnificent effort which, under the leadership of your two great presidents, Roosevelt and Truman, has made possible the victory. Without you, Americans, there would have been no future for Europe and for Asia, but a terrible servitude. There would have been neither justice nor freedom for the world. Long live the United States of America.
In the beginning, in the 1930s, Charles de Gaulle is just another French tank officer, dreaming of the power and potential of armored warfare. But France, behind the Maginot Line, has no need of young dreamers with revolutionary ideas. 500,000 men on duty day and night can blunt and hurl back any kind of conventional attack. Only the war that comes is not a conventional war. It is a lightning war, a blitzkrieg. Germany's legions smash over, through, and around the Maginot Line. Proud, unprepared France is driven to her knees in a month, and triumphant Nazi troops sing as they march into Paris. To the north, riding a special train that crosses the Rhine River into France, is Adolf Hitler. He comes to redeem, to purge, to avenge the bitter memory of Germany's defeat in World War I. It is a happy journey with a perfect ending. A tiny village called Compiègne, where Germany surrendered to France in November 1918. Adolf Hitler, a ragged corporal in that losing army, has taught the world that men and times can change times and men. And in this hallowed French shrine, the Fuhrer struts and swaggers and dances his little jig of joy. Marshal Henri Pétain, hero of World War I, becomes the pathetic symbol of French surrender and collaboration, a tired old man lacking the strength and spirit to fight on. A stunned and helpless world can only watch as the grim drama is played to its tragic end. For Adolf Hitler, this is his moment supreme. For fallen France, this is her darkest hour. The German Führer accepts every salute, every cheer, every wave, content in the knowledge that he alone is master of the European continent. The victory over France is complete and final. She is finished. And yet she is not. Charles de Gaulle has escaped to London, and he will not surrender. France has lost a battle, he says, but France has not lost the war. My countrymen, rally to me. They do. Charles de Gaulle, man without a country, becomes the symbol, the leader of free France. Army, Navy, and Air Force units are organized in England. De Gaulle insists they must train as French units, a demand that angers many Allied leaders. He speaks, thinks, dreams only of liberating France. He sets up an underground army to harass and sabotage the Germans, and the Nazis never know where or when the saboteurs will strike. The lifelong soldier becomes of necessity a statesman, traveling to Moscow and other world capitals, pleading the cause of free France. At first, he is considered an absurd, arrogant figure. But as time passes, he wins a grudging respect. The general frankly admits that he will ask for and accept aid from everyone and anyone. My crusade, he says, is to reclaim the glory and grandeur of France. Whether in Moscow with Stalin or in Casablanca with President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill, Charles de Gaulle is a Frenchman, first, last, and always. Neither Roosevelt nor Churchill like him. He thinks himself the living representative of Joan of Arc, says FDR. He is, writes Churchill prophetically, no friend of England. At Casablanca, a move is made to divide the leadership of Free France between de Gaulle and another war hero and resistance leader, General Henri Giraud. The two French leaders shake hands on the new arrangement, and then the uncompromising Charles de Gaulle continues on, just as before, the only real leader and spokesman for the Free French.
I take this opportunity to thank the American people for the wonderful effort they have made to win this war. Today, as in 1918, your American boys are fighting side by side with the French soldiers. Together, we are marching on the road to Berlin, to Tokyo, to a final victory.
D-Day, June 6, 1944. Freedom returns to France. Charles de Gaulle is home almost 4 years to the day after the fall of France. Although long suspicious of President Roosevelt, de Gaulle confides to General Eisenhower, without America's help, liberation would never have come. This day and the ones that follow are an endless blur of cheers and hands, shouts and praises. August 25th, 1944. For Paris, the glorious day of liberation. But if freedom is at hand, danger is not past. German snipers left behind to assassinate de Gaulle have failed in their mission. But the battle in the streets scatters the crowd. De Gaulle remains impassive, unconcerned, impatient. At last, the final German soldiers are cornered and captured. The conquerors have become the conquered, to be jeered, to be cursed, to be spit upon by the people of Paris, free at last. Having defeated one enemy, France is soon faced with another, post-war communism. Rioting, unrest, bloodshed, all the familiar red tools and techniques are used and abused. But Charles de Gaulle, provisional president, does not yield, and France does not fall. Out of the ruins of World War II, out of the political instability that led France to disaster, de Gaulle seeks to create a strong new government. He fails, and so he retires. He knows that only as dictator can he have the power he needs to cope with the strikes, the indifference that cripple and paralyze France. And Charles de Gaulle knows enough about dictators not to want to be one himself. He becomes a country squire, walking the woods, waiting, and telling all who will listen One day, France will have need of me again. In the decade that follows, the politics and government of France revert to their pre-war pattern of chaos and crisis and chaos. A troubled nation is becoming a second-class power. In Paris, there begins an endless and pathetic procession of French premiers. In 12 years, 25 different governments are formed and fall. No one man, no single party is strong enough to rule alone. And all the time, France's colonial empire is crumbling, racked by revolt and rebellion. The tide of terror sweeps from the remote mountain villages in the African protectorate of Algeria to the lonely jungle outposts in far-off Indochina. These are expensive wars in men and money, and they end, as they must, in defeat for France. The time has come. The hour has struck. The country that he saved once before has need of Charles de Gaulle again. And so the old soldier dons his uniform to speak to the crowds the words they want to hear, to pledge to them the fulfillment of his dreams and their dreams, to remind them that France cannot be France without greatness. The French people rallied to de Gaulle in 1958 as they did in 1940. The constitutional reforms he was denied at war's end are voted him now. January 1959, Charles-André Joseph Marie de Gaulle sets out to do what no other man in modern history has done. With his installation as president, the 68-year-old general begins the task of reclaiming a second time the power and prestige of his beloved country. This second struggle will be no easier than the first. In the post-World War II days, France has remained a junior partner in the community of free nations headed by Great Britain and the United States. The Big Two makes the decisions, and France does little but ratify them. Then, with swiftness and suddenness, two things would happen to bring France out of the shadows and end the era of Anglo-American domination of the European continent. One of the events will be violent, one peaceful. Both will be earth-shaking in their importance and implications. February 1960, France has joined the world's atomic powers. Hurrah for France, says Charles de Gaulle. From this moment on, she is stronger, prouder, a great nation in every respect. He tells the world France will go forward with developing her own independent nuclear force. The second revolutionary development to alter the fate and future of France is far more peaceful, but no less explosive. It begins in the coal mines of France and West Germany, and soon it spreads to every form of economic activity, not only in these two nations, but in Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. It is 6 nations pooling their resources, working together, manufacturing together, trading together, free from the man-made tariffs and customs barriers that for centuries strangled the economic growth of the continent. It It is called the common market, and its effect on its member nations is phenomenal. Their economic growth is soon doubling that of the United States. No longer is France a bankrupt, have-not nation. She is the power to be reckoned with in New Europe. It is under these dramatically changed conditions that England, in 1963, applies for admission to the common market. It is ironic, but true, that every member was a defeated or occupied nation in World War II. Now they sit in judgment, each one holding the power to veto England's entry. It is France who does so. Her foreign minister, speaking for Charles de Gaulle, says England is not and never has been a truly continental power. She has, he adds, been too long allied with American interests and ambitions. There is nothing left to say or do. England is out of the common market. Having turned her back on an ancient ally, France proceeds to embrace an ancient enemy. West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer comes to Paris in 1963 to sign a new and closer friendship pact with France. The two elder statesmen are the most commanding figures in Europe. Their nations are the strongest, politically, economically, militarily. And France, says de Gaulle, will make her own decisions, pursue her own policies. Then Charles de Gaulle kisses the leader of the nation whose soldiers his countrymen cursed, jeered, and spit upon 20 years before. France and her president have followed a long road in their search for the greatness that was France in the days of Napoleon and Charlemagne. It is a bold road, a proud road, and it is charted by a deep de Gaulle conviction that glory gives herself only to those who have always dreamed of her. In his 70 years and 10, glory, in good measure, has given herself to Charles de Gaulle and his beloved France.